All right, one last look at your traffic and weather for your ride in on this Wednesday morning. Several accidents to report. We'll start off one at Decker Boulevard near O'Neill Court. Another one at I-26 eastbound and exit number 125. I-77 northbound and Shop Road. I-26 westbound at exit number 110. And then finally, Garner's Ferry Road at McCord's Ferry Road. Today, high of 65, a little bit warmer than it has been. Plenty of sunshine. Tomorrow, high of 69 with sunshine. Friday, back into the 70s, high of 72 and sunshine there as well. That's your traffic and weather from the Wetzel's Automotive Traffic Center here on The Game. Oh, 9 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Jack Veltri back in studio today. Certainly enjoyed our time out there yesterday at Charwood Golf Club and enjoyed seeing a lot of y'all out there hanging out and celebrating Veterans Day. But we're back in the building and we're halfway through the week, man. Closer to seeing this team get back on the field on Saturday and whatever the heck this offense is going to look like.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully getting out there. My flight's on Friday, so hopefully getting out there safe and sound. You know, it's crazy right now with all these flights getting canceled with the shutdown and whatnot. So hopefully all things go, cross my fingers that nothing happens on Friday flying out there.
And you're flying into Houston, right?
Yeah, so flying out of Charlotte into Houston Friday afternoon.
How far is College Station from Houston?
It's about hour and a half, I think, okay. I would say. So it's not that bad. I mean, it's either you fly into there or I want to say maybe like, I can't remember what the other airport, maybe Dallas. I don't know if it's Dallas or not, but Houston's the main airport to fly into there if you want to head out to College Station.
Okay, neat. And you've been to College Station before, right?
I went earlier this year.
Oh, that's right.
For that. Who could forget that baseball weekend?
Well, so. I think we all wanted to forget that baseball weekend, which is why I forgot you were out there.
Yeah, I've been out there a few times now for work, so looking forward to being back out there. It's one of my favorite places to go.
Okay, good. I'm assuming good barbecue.
Oh, great barbecue. Great barbecue. So
at least you have that to look forward to.
Exactly. So it'll be fun.
Oh, man, a lot to get into. We heard from Coach Beamer yesterday. Should be hearing from Mike Furrey later on today, which would be an interesting.
Well, hold on.
We don't know. Do we not know?
No, we do know.
We do know.
Not hearing from Mike Furrey.
We're not hearing from Mike Furrey. Okay, well that's disappointing.
Yeah, so it'll be just Clayton White and Joe DeCamillis.
Huh.
I don't know why.
So even as an interim coach, he won't speak to the media.
Well, I don't think it's more so. I don't know if it's necessarily him not wanting to speak to the media.
Or Beamer not wanting to speak to the media.
I think it's more of a coach's decision.
Okay.
So
interesting. Well, never mind.
We'll see. But
Coach Beamer did speak about Mike Furrey yesterday, and we'll get into some of that coming up in just a second. But first, it is time for our 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up.
Time to get hyped. Here's your 9 a.m. Sandstorm, sponsored by George Sink Injury Lawyers. Just call all nines.
It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick-Me-Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. Of course, as we expected, Coach Beamer is going to be asked a lot of questions about Mike Furrey and the changes to the offense yesterday, and he talked a little bit about the differences between Mike Furrey and Mike Shula so far.
I believe that players in so many ways take on the personality of their coach, and Mike Shula's personality is different than Mike Furry's, and doesn't mean that one's right or wrong. Mike Shula's won a lot of football games and has called plays in the Super Bowl and has been an SEC head coach that won double-digit games with that personality. So it doesn't make it wrong. Mike's personality is different, and it is a different voice, and there's a different energy, vibe, whatever you want to call it, in those offensive meetings and on the offensive field. We did a period in practice last week against the defense, the first offense versus the first defense, where we said it was third down, and I told Mike, hey, you got 2 downs to get there. He said, do I have 2 downs? And meaning, if I don't get it on third down, are we going to go for it on fourth down? He said, do I have 2 downs? And I said, yes. And he's like, doesn't matter, I only need 1. And then when he got out there and he got the first down on third down, that's just his mentality. And you hope Lenoris and the quarterbacks and the rest of the offense kind of feed off that, confidence and energy. But what gives you confidence in a game is going out there and performing well. So that's what's going to matter, is coaching well and playing well on Saturday against a really good defense and a really good team in a really challenging environment that we'll be going into.
So let's read between the lines a little bit here. I like to use this example. I've used it before. Let's say that you were dating a girl, you break up with her, then you end up dating a new girl, several months later or whatever. And somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what do you like so much about your new girlfriend? And you'll list off a couple different things. Oh, she's so kind and she's so funny and all this kind of stuff. And what that usually tells the other person is those are the things that she's doing that the other person wasn't doing, right? So
Yeah.
when I hear Coach Beamer say those things about Mike Furry and just this confidence and vocalness that he has in practice so far, that tells me Mike Shula probably wasn't doing those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just watch, like, I remember when we were at like open practices, whenever before the season, or even at the Citrus Bowl last year, you can immediately tell there's a big difference between Furry and Shula. Shula's a lot more reserved. Like, he's still going to coach you. I think both guys are getting their message across in different ways. It's just Furry's a lot more animated, I would say. Like, a lot more lively. Energetic is the buzzword that a lot of those guys, including Beamer, used yesterday. That's just who he is. Shula was not like that. And it's not necessarily an issue, but it's definitely a different coaching style that Furry has. And it's one that they're hoping gives them a spark heading into this weekend, in that hopefully that will kind of rub off on those guys and lead to some better results.
But we've both played sports throughout our entire lives. We know the effect of a high-energy coach, right? You had that coach that was coming in, yelling, excited, just ready to go every single day. I said yesterday, somebody that, maybe used a little too much pre-workout, and that kind of stuff. That seems like the guy that Mike Furry is, and that's definitely a contrast to Mike Shula. Again, you still got to go out there and call the right plays. But I do think coming in with a better energy level and an excitement can resonate with your players too.
No, totally can. I mean, that's ultimately the goal for this weekend is, can they get better results on offense? And I think you just got to try things that are different. And I think just this personality thing of, hey, Mike Furry's completely different from Mike Shula in terms of the way he goes about his coaching. I think that could hopefully lead to the start of some better results. But, ultimately, it comes down to what plays are you running, what plays are you running in this situation, that situation, and can you put points on the board? That's ultimately what's going to matter.
And Beamer did mention as well yesterday that, they took some things out of the playbook, put some things back in. Luke Doty said that they were eliminating clutter from the offense, which it going back to a couple weeks ago, and there's contrasting statements because Beamer said that he'd taken some things out. Mike Shula said they hadn't taken some things out. Regardless, it seems like once again, we're at this process of simplifying the offensive playbook, and I imagine there are probably some things that Mike Furry really liked in the offensive playbook that Shula may not have been running as much, that he's probably like, hey, I got the opportunity, I'm going to do this now. You know what I mean? So there's opportunities for different wrinkles to show up on Saturday and see if you can generate something with this offense against a really good A&M defense.
Yeah, we've heard for a few weeks now, even before Shula was fired, that going back into like the Alabama game prep, that they were going to simplify the play, or they did simplify the playbook, and just kind of like decided, hey, we're going to call the best plays. We're going to get the balls to the best players, and that meant trimming the playbook down by 15, 20 plays, and that's what they did, right? And if they had to call their 10 best plays, then they're going to call their 10 best plays, and they'll call them over and over and over again. I wonder if that's what we're going to get this weekend. You know, Beamer did say when it's all said and done heading into Saturday, the playbook in terms of how many plays they have in there should remain the same. How different will it be? Well, you only have about a week and a half to get ready for this game, and it's not necessarily a lot of time to put your own spin on the offense. You kind of just have to go with what you got right now. But I would imagine there's got to be a few, as Beamer said, there was some tweaking made. So I would imagine that's going to mean something's got to be different with this offense.
Well, the thing for me that I'm most interested in seeing is situations and game flows, right? Because again, the playbook itself is largely going to be the same. It's not like they're going to have a ton of brand new play calls that haven't been at your disposal already this season. But how does Mike Furrey manage things throughout the game when you're getting put in those 4th and short situations that Mike Shula had some pretty bad play calls on? How does Mike Furrey handle those things? That's where the biggest difference to me can come with this offense this weekend.
Totally. I mean, you need to call better plays in better situations, but at the same time, the players have to go execute. And I think that's going to be, I do wonder though this weekend, how much of a difference will it make what Mike Furrey calls in different situations compared to what Shula called? If it doesn't make any difference, I think we kind of just have to look at it like, hey, like maybe it's just the talent on the field is just not as good as we thought it was going to be this season. I think it's okay to have that realization that maybe this team just isn't what we thought they were going to be this year, just with the talent they have on the field underperforming. I mean, the offensive line has to block better. Lenore Sellers has to be better. I mean, receivers got to get open. Running game has to get going. I mean, there's a lot of different things you need to go right. Besides, hey, we have a new play caller, so he needs to call plays better than what this guy did.
Well, this is going to be an opportunity for Mike Furrey to audition for the full-time play caller role going into next year, as the search for that will be continuing throughout the next couple weeks, and ultimately a hire probably going to be made once the regular season is over. Coach Beamer yesterday was asked an interesting question about his patterns when it comes to hiring offensive coordinators. It's a long answer, but a very intriguing one, which we'll get into coming up next as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Veltri with you on your Wednesday on the Game. It's all right here for our friends over at Twin Peaks. I tell you that they are a great place to take in all your sports action on any given weekend, but you don't have to wait for the weekend. At Twin Peaks, late nights hit every night, and you can enjoy fresh, scratch-made food, handcrafted cocktails, and, of course, those 29-degree ice-cold beers served till the lights go low, and when the rest of the world runs down, they turn up. Pull onto the lodge and experience the best late night in the league tonight, tomorrow, and every night of the week over at Twin Peaks. Are you looking for a job or you can have fun and build friendships and make serious money? It's time to join the Twin Peaks family. They're hiring Twin Peaks girls, cooks, bussers, barbacks, and more. You can work in a fast-paced, high-energy, great earnings environment and an atmosphere that feels like family. If you're ready for a job that you'll actually love, text WORK, the number 4 TP, to 85000. That is WORK, the number 4 TP, to 85000, and join the Twin Peaks family. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Points Hour. Hitting Jack Beltry along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. We're getting into what Coach Beamer said yesterday in his Tuesday press conference, and the most interesting answer he gave to a question was towards the end when John Whittle asked him about, his tendencies to hire guys with NFL backgrounds. That was going to factor in to this next upcoming coaching search. And he gave a very long answer, and I did go back through it and try to see, okay, can I just splice a minute or two out of this? But as long as it is, about 4.5 minutes, I think we need to play the whole thing to give full context before we talk about it. So this is yesterday talking to the media about his tendency to hire offensive coordinators that have NFL backgrounds and kind of going back through and re-examining the last couple of hires that he's made at the offensive coordinator spot.
I'm open to anything. I push back a little bit, and you didn't say this, but I know it's a narrative out there. I push back a little bit on the narrative that we haven't necessarily gotten these coordinator hires right. Have we been efficient enough on offense and consistent enough on offense? Absolutely not. But let's also not act like we've brought in 3 coordinators and we've just fired all of them and we just threw up our hands. I mean, we brought in a guy in year 1 that had been an offensive coordinator in college. Yes, he had a pro background. Well, that pro background was with Joe Brady with the Panthers, who they did a pretty freaking good job when he was running a pro-style offense at LSU that year and won the national championship. Now, yeah, they had Joe Burrow and whatnot, but he had spent time in the NFL, but he was a college guy that people can, say what they want about him. He won 7 games as the offensive coordinator our first season, starting 4 different quarterbacks. And then the next season, he hung 63 on Tennessee at the end of the season and scored more points against Clemson than any offensive coordinator has here since I've been the head coach. And didn't get fired, a coach that he worked for previously at Western Carolina, Temple, and the Carolina Panthers, got the head coaching job at Nebraska, and his very first call was to him to go be the offensive coordinator. So I know people have perceptions of he was this pro-style guy that had this complicated offense. Well, we did a lot of really good in his time, too. Consistent enough? No. Then the next guy, yes, had been primarily in the NFL, but was intriguing because he spent a year at Arkansas, or 2 years, whatever it was, and time at Penn State with James Franklin, being around college offenses. So, yes, his background was the NFL. And I hired him because of 1, good football coach, 2, had been exposed to the college game with the Art Briles system because he was working for Kendall Briles at Arkansas. But yes, his primary background was the NFL, came here, left to become a head football coach. So I'd say were we consistent enough off season the last 2 seasons? No, we need to be, but left for a promotion. And then this one, quality football coach who had been basically his entire career since he left Alabama, Mike, had been in the NFL and then spent time in our offense, the college game, in 24. And then I thought it was a seamless transition. So I know I just diverted off your question. All 3 of those guys, yes, did have pro backgrounds. Do we need to be more consistent on offense? Yes. I don't like the inconsistency that we've had since I've been the head coach, and that's on me. That's totally on me. We've got to score more points. We got to turn the ball over less. We got to get sacked less. And every year I come in here in spring practice when I meet with you guys and I talk about these things that we needed to do better on offense, and it's too many sacks and it's too many turnovers, and this year's no different. It's like a freaking broken record. If you look at the SEC stats, we've turned the ball over too many times. Once again, our defense is leading the SEC in takeaways, and bless you. So we've got to be better from that standpoint. I think the bless you is going to be like the Bill O'Brien, what's up, Trevor, from last week on that also, which is awesome. I think my bless you will be mine. But to answer your question, John, whoever gives us the best chance to be successful. Would I like to find, if we hire from outside, someone that's been a college coordinator, I think that would be awesome. But if the best person is from the NFL, and can fit what we want to do here offensively, then so be it. I'm not closing the door on anything, but I also understand that, as we go into 2026, whoever is in that position, we need to score more points than what we've done this year and every year too, because we just haven't scored enough, and ultimately that's on me to get the right guy in here and get that right.
All right, I want to kind of break this up into two parts here. And again, that was Coach Beamer yesterday talking about his tendency to hire guys with NFL backgrounds, how that'll factor into the search and all that kind of stuff. And he spent a lot of that answer defending his previous three hires, right? Mark Satterfield, Dow Loggins, and more recently, Mike Shula. I will say it, and I know I was just kind of coming into this radio station when the whole Marcus Satterfield saga was coming to an end. Wasn't there like a come to Jesus meeting that season because the offense was too complicated and they had to simplify it, and it was more of a collaborative effort on going into the Tennessee game? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, that's kind of where this whole, when you hear people talk about like complaining about oh my God, we're simplifying it again. This happens every year. I think it kind of stems from that season of when they kind of just decided like, hey, we're gonna call the best plays and getting the ball to the best players, and we're running them over and over and over again. That's where that stemmed from. That Tennessee game did not happen by accident, where they didn't it just magically came together. Like part of it, yeah, but like they kind of realized hey, literally what I just said there, call the best plays.
Because wasn't it kind of trending towards them making a move at offensive coordinator had Satterfield not been hired by Matt Rule? Now we're not. I guess we won't know that for sure, but did it kind of seem that way?
There's a lot that we just won't know, but I would say so.
Okay, so that's the Mark Satterfield hire. Again, he had a guy that had been an OC in college. He was with the Panthers when South Carolina hired him. So there's your NFL connection there. Then we'll go to Dow Loggins, and I was here. I'd started about maybe a week before when the Dow Loggins hire and press conference happened. And look, everybody rightfully so pointed to Dow Loggins' numbers in the NFL, which were not good. He was given the dishonor, I guess, of being called the worst play caller in the NFL in one of those seasons. So the optics of it weren't great. And Beamer went out there and was it Lou Bajak that he went off on? That had written the piece about Loggins being a bad hire? Somebody.
I remember what you're talking about. I just don't know who he was yelling at there. There's been a lot of times like that.
Yeah. Either way, it was a controversial hire, and look, I'd say Dow Loggins has ended up being the best of the three offensive coordinators he had, but he had his ups and downs. Obviously, hit his stride last year in those last 6 games, in line with the team, winning all 6 of those games. And then, of course, we get to Mike Shula, who, out of everyone, had the best resume. Again, he had been a play caller in the NFL. He had been a part of taking a team to a Super Bowl. Had been a head coach before. Like, his resume was the best out of everyone. And again, I think it's important to remember he was not hired to be the offensive coordinator. He was hired to be an assistant on the staff under Dow Loggins. I don't know if Shane Beamer went into last season with the anticipation that Loggins was going to be gone and taking a head coaching job. But when Loggins did go to App State, it made a lot of sense why Shula would take over because of his experience. He'd already been part of the offense. Like, I don't think we were as critical of that hire. I'm talking about not just us here, but the fan base and media as a whole when they went from Loggins to Shula.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be critical of the Shula hire, but it's like it made the most sense when the move was made. I mean, everyone was praising it. I think for the most part, there were probably some skeptics out there, but I think everyone, from what I remember, was like, okay, like, this makes sense. Like, he had been in the system for a year. He worked with Lenora Sellers, did a lot of good with him. Let's see what he can do now calling plays. And you look what he did with the Panthers. It's like he coached Cam Newton. He worked with Josh Allen. It's like this is a perfect match for this type of quarterback. So it just didn't work out. And that's going to happen sometimes, right? Not every hire is going to be a home run. And in this case, it was certainly a strikeout on 3 pitches in a lot of respects. So it's just, I think you look at it from the lens of, all Shane's done is hire NFL coordinators to come in, NFL coaches. Like, I understand that sentiment, but I think now going into this next hire, he's open to anything, right? If he even said it, if the next guy he brings in just so happens to be from the NFL. But if he's the right guy for what they're trying to do, then so be it. That's what they're going to do.
Do we think Beamer was waiting for somebody to ask him this specific question so he could go on this little rant yesterday? Because it seemed like he was ready to go down that path a little bit, right?
I'll tell you what, he was dialed up and ready to go for that. Just out of the blue, after I asked a question, he just started going off about that. Did you see that post that the Texas A&M?
Yes, he had a couple things prepared that he wanted to get to yesterday.
Yeah,
it seemed like
he definitely had his batteries charged to go on tangents yesterday, and the one about the NFL. It makes sense though why he sees what's out there, and
he pays attention. We know he does.
He pays attention, so I understand why he kind of wanted to defend his decisions. I get that.
So that was part one of that, was him defending the prior offensive coordinator's hires that he had made. So now we'll get into this on the other side. Why are there issues? If these hires were the right hires, why wasn't it working, and why is it going to be different with this next guy? We'll get into that coming up next. It is The Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry with you on your Wednesday here on The Game. welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher with you on your Wednesday here on the game. You'll be able to hear from Coach Beamer once again tomorrow night, by the way, on Carolina Calls with him and Todd Ellis at 7 o'clock. That'll lead into Thursday Night Football with the Jets taking on the Patriots again. That's coming up tomorrow night right here on the game. We're continuing to unpack Beamer's most notable answer from yesterday in reference to John Whittle asking him about his tendency to hire guys with NFL backgrounds, and he took that opportunity to go back through the past 3 hires that he made and defending his decisions for making those hires and, you know, the varying results we got from those guys. But one thing that really stood out to me there towards the very end was him talking about every single year going into spring practice or talking to the media before a season. They're always talking about the same things, having me, not giving us as many sacks, not turning the ball over. I can't remember if he mentioned running the ball or not, but that's something else that outside of last year, this program has struggled with a lot at times through his tenure, and this year being another example of that. And to me, it's like, okay, well, aren't you kind of the common denominator here? Are we maybe looking at this the wrong way, where maybe it's not so much the hire of the offensive coordinator, but more Beamer's influence on the offense in terms of making this better than it has been?
Maybe. That's tough to say without clear evidence of that. But, I mean, it's something that I think is definitely worth considering here.
Well, and the reason I asked this, and you're right, we don't get to sit in the meetings. We don't get to hear what the conversations are behind closed doors when it comes to game planning and putting together a playbook and all that kind of stuff. But as the head coach, you are able to dictate a lot of things. Or really, if you say you don't want something being done on offense or want the offense to look or be run a certain way, then, well, the offense coordinator is going to do that because he works for you. And I'm not saying that's what's happening here, but when you go through a 5-year stretch, you've had multiple offensive coordinators, and you're having the same issues over and over again, maybe it is something about the way a Beamer run or a Beamer led team is going to be offensively that's just a common trait at this point. And again, I don't know what specifically that is or would be about him telling coordinators don't do this or do that or whatever it may be, but maybe that's where the issue lies, is something about Beamer's influence on this offense as to why it's not been consistent or successful enough through 5 years.
Maybe, but I also remember a little snippet of what he said yesterday about, and just paraphrasing here, about, hey, like with hiring 2 new offensive coaches for next season, like there's going to be a lot of freedom to like really change what they do offensively going into next year. So whether that means, hey, like new play caller comes in with an entirely new offensive system compared to what the other guys had. Again, the other guys that they've had, a lot of it's been pro style. So with D'Lo and Shula this year and even Satterfield, if they go, maybe they go out and get, let's say they go out and get a college guy, right? Let's say hypothetically they went out and got, I don't know, Kendall Briles. I don't know exactly what offense he runs over there at TCU, but you know, the point is they go out and get a college guy to run this offense. It's probably going to be different than the pro style type of offense that we've seen in years past. And I don't even know if it's necessarily the pro style. I feel like is definitely part of the issue. I think they do just need to get a college run offense out here next year. Maybe that makes the difference. Maybe that is what's going to be different about this team next year compared to whether it's, how much influence does Shane have on the struggles that this offense has had with what's being called.
And let's not get it twisted. I'm not sitting here pointing the finger at Shane Beamer saying you and you alone are the reason why this offense hasn't been successful or consistent enough through 5 years. But when you're having these struggles, there's nobody that's exempt from being examined into why things aren't going the way that the way that they need to be going. And the reason why I bring this up is because you don't want to become another Iowa. Right? And I use Iowa as an example all the time because they always have phenomenal defense. They always have incredible special teams. But for the 25 years that Kirk Ferentz, 25 plus years now, he's been there since 1999, for the over quarter decade that Kirk Ferentz has been at Iowa, they cannot figure offense out. They've had small little spurts here and there, but for the most part, their offenses are usually pretty dismal. You could take Kyle Shanahan and put him as the offensive coordinator at Iowa. They would still probably only manage to score about 13 points a game and generate about 220 yards of offense because Kirk Ferentz has his fingers on that offense to such a high degree that it really puts these offensive coordinators in a box. And it's very clear that's the way that he wants to play football, and he's fine with that. And they don't seem to be wanting to fire him anytime soon. So I guess he's going to continue to be that way. But they're never going to get to a national championship level by playing that way. And I will always say that if Kirk Ferentz had a consistent offense, Iowa would have probably made a couple national championship games, if not won a few in his 25 years, because that's how good they are in the other two facets of the game. And that's why bringing this back to Shane Beamer in South Carolina, you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be the program that's really good at special teams, usually really good at defense, but can't have an offense that fights itself out of a wet paper bag, because that's going to hold you back in today's world of college football.
All right, here's the thing, though. Have we ever seen Iowa under Ferentz score 63 points in a game? Have we ever seen Iowa have remember the month of November that South Carolina had last year, just putting so many points up, pretty much besides the Clemson game last year? I mean, they were putting up a lot of points. I mean, have we ever seen that at Iowa? So I don't think that's necessarily, I get the comparison to some degree, but it's not like this offense has always been inept and can't score points. This year, okay, like we can make the comparison to Iowa, I think, a little bit, just with how the lackluster the offense has been this year. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's a apples to apples of over the entire 5 years, because there have been some good moments with this offense. Like that 3-game stretch to close out the 2022 season, that offense was just rolling in that Tennessee game, the Clemson game, and then even the bowl game against Notre Dame. They put up, I think, 38 points? I mean,
I think one of those scores was defensive. It's pick six by Donald Fortune.
DQ, yeah.
Or, was it DQ? Or
it was DQ.
Or did they have two in that game? They might have had two.
And they had
either way.
And they had a special team touchdown.
That's right, because Hunter Rogers caught the touchdown. So
now we're defeating my point.
Sorry.
Man, jogging my memory. All right, but anyway, point is, points were being put up.
Yeah.
So this offense has shown us at times, besides this year, that they can go out there and score. It just hasn't been super consistent. I think that's the main thing Shane pointed out yesterday. He kept referring, asking himself, the question like, has it been good enough? No. Has it been consistent enough? No. The rhetorical questions. And I will agree with him. It has not been consistent enough. Has it been good, though, at times? Yes. I would say this offense has shown you things at times, just not this year.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to be a doomer by saying, there's never going to be a way for this offense to be successful. But again, when you haven't been as consistent as you wanted to be now through mostly 5 years, nobody, again, is exempt from being examined. So maybe it is something about the way that Coach Beamer instructs his offensive coordinators or puts parameters around them that does have an influence on why the offense hasn't been where it needs to be. And it seems like he's hopefully more than willing to take whatever those parameters are off with whoever this next hire is and give them full autonomy over to whatever this offense is going to be. And I hope that's the case. And God, because again, it benefits all of us when this team is better. It benefits all of us when this team is winning more. And again, we're so critical this year because it's been such a disappointing season. You took this program to maybe some of its highest heights it's ever seen. I get it. Technically, Spurrier won more games in a season, but Spurrier never had the team on the cusp of making a national championship or a playoff during his time, and Beamer did. So there's a lot to say for that. And when you follow it up with the dud that this season has been, it's disappointing. And that's why people are so upset and people are angry, calling in, texting in with us almost every single day because they expected more, which is why we really have to peel back the layers and examine what's gone wrong and how you can fix it.
I think what we're trying to get at here is maybe agree or disagree here, Tyler. I think they need to just kind of let the next OC come in. Hopefully it's somebody that comes from a different style background than what they've had because it just hasn't been consistent enough, and they let that guy do his thing. Because, to be fair, I mean, what experience does Beamer necessarily have working with offense besides being a head coach? You know what I mean? Like he's always been a special teams guy, right?
Wasn't he a tight ends coach at
Georgia,
Georgia,
right?
And Was he just special teams in Oklahoma?
Oklahoma too.
So he's been involved in offense.
He's been involved in it, but he's never been an offensive play caller. He doesn't come from that OC background. So I think maybe just, I don't know we're not in those meetings. We don't know what's going on necessarily. Sure. But I think maybe just with the next guy, bring them in, pay them whatever you want, honestly. Hopefully it's a really top quality guy that's been there, done that, and you kind of just let them run the show and have your say on what you think works and what doesn't, but just put a little bit more trust to them, I think, is what would help.
And again, this isn't me trying to point the finger and say, Beamer, you are definitely the problem here. But again, when you've had the inconsistencies, like, okay, maybe you just need to change your approach on how you view offense or how you go about on not only hiring your coordinators, but telling them what you want out of your offenses when they get here. I don't know. Again, nothing is exempt from being examined at this point in time as we're trying to hopefully see this program get back on track next year offensively.
Yeah, you have to question it a little bit, I think, and I don't blame you for questioning it. It's just, again, we don't know for sure what goes on behind the scenes, but it's like, hey, if it's been this way on offense for a few years, you got to question it to some degree, right?
Ray, we'll get to you on the other side as he wants to talk about offense on the phone lines as wrap up hour number 1. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Wednesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Been talking about the offense this entire hour. Ray wants to weigh in on that offensive discussion on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines. Ray, appreciate your call as always. What's on your mind today?
Hey, well, good morning, Tyler. Good morning, Jack. Yeah, just kind of, listen to what Coach Beamer said, yesterday. And all indicators are that Coach Beamer will be back next year. So that's kind of that. But I was just curious. So I looked at the last 5 years when we ranked offensively, and I'll tell you, it was worse than I thought, guys. Honest to God, I tell you. So if you just took the numbers alone, in the last 5 years, our offense averages about 340 yards a game. This year it's 294. And if you take our composite average of our SEC ranking on offense, it's around 12th. Now, understand there was a few years there we only had 14 teams in the league. So it's very concerning. And it does come back to Coach Beamer because he's a head coach and he's got to be having some input in the offense, even though I don't think he brought in a whole lot of offensive acumen, but he's a head coach. But what really got me intrigued on Elijah's show, he had a guy on there, Hamilton was his last name. Very good segment. And he brought something up that's got me really thinking. So the whole thing, we're like, well, this is not the year to be looking for a head coach because, you got so many head coaching jobs open at some big blue blood schools, which is true, and it's really intriguing and interesting. But he brought up the point where you're going to have that many, OCs headed to those jobs as well. So it's going to make it tough on us regardless. And another thing he brought up was, so a lot of these OCs are going to be moving up to head coaching jobs, maybe on the smaller level, but that's what they want to do. That's how they get ahead. And then he said, so you're thinking you're going to get a good OC to come in here who knows darn well, the program is, is on the hot seat. And is that something you're willing to risk? So I would just say this OC search is going to be extremely interesting, but I don't know, guys. I think it's going to be interesting. I'd like to see the glasses half full, but I think right now it's kind of half empty. But we'll see how it works out. Thanks a lot, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate the call there, Ray. 803-404-6100. And he's referring to Scott Hamilton, Post and Courier, who Elijah had on, I believe, right there at the end of the 8 o'clock hour, right before we came on. And he's right. And this is something that we have mentioned in the past couple weeks. When you have so many openings across the country, and we look at it mainly from a head coaching standpoint where, again, Carolina's not in the market for a head coach as of right now, but when Auburn hires a new coach, when LSU hires a new coach, Florida, Penn State, Virginia Tech, Florida State's probably going to come open. All these jobs, they're thought to be pretty darn good jobs, are going to be filling their head coaching vacancies. All those guys are going to have to go out there and make offensive coordinator hires, defensive coordinator hires, assistant hires, all those kind of things. So there's a lot of guys out there that on a quieter year in the coaching carousel, you could probably maybe get to come to South Carolina. And look, there's a lot of options out there, so it's not like there's only a pool of a handful of guys to pull from, but I imagine there's going to be a lot of guys that Carolina has interest in that may go end up taking jobs elsewhere as offensive coordinators, maybe even as head coaches at some of these spots that either have already come open or by other coaches taking new jobs become open then. You know what I mean? So you're definitely going to be challenged when it comes to finding a coordinator because there's so many jobs open. This is where, though, having a lot of money and throwing a lot of money at that coordinator spot can help you out.
It will certainly help you out. I don't know exactly what dollar amount we're looking at in terms of how much would South Carolina be willing to spend and what do they need to spend on a coordinator. I mean, it seems like most guys top end get about like $1.5 million, maybe $2 million. I don't know if you need to go beyond that. Well, I think it depends on the guy, number one, that you go out and get. Like, let's say you hypothetically, Brian Dable just got fired by the Giants. We talked about this the other day. Like, what if you brought him in, as your offensive coordinator? Well, I would imagine, I don't know what he's making with the Giants, but I'm assuming you could probably bring him in for around that $2 million range, just because he's coming from the NFL and he's proven that he can do it at the NFL and at the college level, calling plays. But I think you're definitely right. It's going to be a challenge to go get who you want. I mean, there's going to be a lot of contenders out there for some of the guys they may be interested in, but I think there are enough younger guys out there too, maybe in the college game that are at the G6 level right now or at the lower P5 that want an opportunity to come be in the SEC. And Beamer's a good guy to work for too, and it's a good place to be at South Carolina, I would say. And you have the potential of working with Lenore Sellers and some of the pieces on this offense. I think it's a very intriguing job.
Definitely so. Again, you're going to have to pony up the money for it because, especially in a competitive environment like this is going to be, you're not going to settle for anybody that you get on the cheap. You need to be willing to spend the money, and hopefully Carolina's going to be able to do that. Again, we're not going to get all of the details on this coaching search the last couple weeks of the regular season, but as we get into December, hopefully that hire will be made pretty quickly, and we'll obviously talk about that as it does become a little bit closer. Last night, basketball action for the women. Tonight, men's basketball in action against Presbyterian. We'll dive into all that coming up next to start hour number 2. Also get into the college football playoff. Newest top 25 that came out last night as well as the extra point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry with you under Wednesday on the game.
Everyone around here knows that AAA Heating and Air has the best HVAC replacement options in the Midlands with guaranteed financing, no payments or interest for 12 months, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty. They're tough to beat when you need a new system. But here's the question. What if you just need a repair? Well, AAA has something to offer for you, too. If you're strapped for cash, they offer up to 12-month payment plans with no credit check on repair services. Yep, you heard me right. No credit check. Just have a valid bank account and own your home. So whether you're replacing or repairing, AAA Heating and Air has you covered. Give them a call today at 803-677-1500. Again, that is 803-677-1500. Tell them that you heard about them on 107.5 The Game. Call today and get your comfort back. You'll be glad you did.
All right, welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Belcher along with you, kicking off hour number 2 here on your Wednesday on the Game. Last night, women's basketball in action. They took down the rival in the upstate, Clemson, 65-37. I believe that was the 15th straight win against the Tigers for Dawn Staley here at South Carolina. She talked about dominating the fourth quarter after the game. That's an understatement. Here's what she had to say.
We had a good group that was disciplined. Sometimes you go an entire game and one group just is more linked and connected, and that group that was out there was very predictable, and they were linked in together, and I think what we failed to realize is Clemson was just basically taking the air out of the ball by fluffing it till about 8 seconds left on the shot clock, and then they run their short shot clock options, and they did that all game long. Our offense is what forced us to have to play defense for a long time because we took ill-advised shots, quick shots, no reversals, and if you're going to play that way, you have to play defense for a very long time, and that's what happened to us tonight.
Jack, you've covered a lot of basketball in your time.
Yes.
You ever seen a Power 4 team go 0 when it comes to an entire quarter of basketball?
No, I have not. That fourth quarter was dominant last night. And look, at times, Clemson actually did a decent job of keeping up with South Carolina. South Carolina, I think the bigger issue was that South Carolina didn't necessarily play a great game through 3 quarters, and that kind of allowed Clemson to hang around. Even though South Carolina still had a double-digit point lead, it was just this game probably could have been a lot different and a lot more of a wider gap if South Carolina just shot the ball better, played the way they did in the fourth quarter for the entire game.
Yeah, Carolina came out of the gates pretty strong there. Joyce Edwards, I think, had 10 points by the end of the first quarter, or close to the end of the first quarter. Cooled off a little bit there in the middle parts, and they and Clemson both were struggling to score there kind of towards the middle part of that third quarter, and then Carolina was able to obviously turn it on there in the fourth quarter and pull away for the victory. But yeah, an interesting game nonetheless. And look, we knew Carolina was going to win this game. I don't think we had any doubts about this, but looking that dominant and Clemson looking that poor in the final quarter was definitely a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise. But hey, 15 straight wins now over the rival, and still won very comfortably. So, nothing to – you look at the final score and you're like, okay, this is a pretty easy win for South Carolina. But certainly at times they got challenged. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they only had 9 players last night. Again, Maddie McDaniel got suspended, and who knows when she's going to be back. Dawn Staley doesn't expect her back for the next game, and basically said it's up to her when she comes back. So don't know what that means, but it's something they got to figure out.
Yeah, that is an interesting part of this when it comes to Maddie McDaniel, who again had the bonk on the head in the game the other day that we didn't know if that was going to allow her to come back for this game, and then an hour or two before the game, we get the tweet that she'd been suspended, and we know nothing else besides that. And we'll see. But Dawn said it's basically up to her. So hopefully it's nothing too serious, and she can get back in the fold and continue to play. Because again, she's one of those exciting young players that we want to see out there on the court. As Carolina didn't have, and they're already obviously down. Chloe Kitts, Ashton Watkins not playing this year, so you don't want that depth to take any more hits than it already has.
Yeah, definitely. And tonight we got men's basketball going on. The team taking on Presbyterian, and Tyler. You remember this game last year with Presbyterian? It was the day before the. I remember being in Orlando, the day before the Citrus Bowl, and that Mincy kid, man,
Were they down at halftime in this game?
I believe they were. They were. It was a really tight game, and I can't remember exactly, but South Carolina did win. But it kind of came down to the fact that Mincy got in foul trouble.
Yep.
And he didn't play a bit down the stretch, which allowed once he was off the floor, South Carolina was able to finally take advantage.
Yeah, Mincy scored 27 points last year.
And thank God he's not there anymore. I think he's at George Mason now.
And Carolina was down 32 to 24 at halftime of this game last year. And I imagine when he got off the court, because Carolina really hit the gas on offense there in the second half and won 69 to 59. But Yeah, that was. Hopefully, you're not running into that kind of thing tomorrow or tonight.
Yeah, the key tonight is you get a chance to take the lead early in this game. Like, hopefully South Carolina comes out here shooting really well like they did against Southern Miss, because they had a double-digit point lead in that game. The problem was, once they started missing shots, like I think they started out like 6 for 8 from three-point range and then went 10 of 35 the rest of the way. 16 made threes is great, but when you're taking a program high 43 shots from behind the arc and you're not making a lot of them, that's going to lead to issues, because South Carolina has not been great defensively. They turn the ball over a lot. They don't have a ton of paint presence. So they have other issues. And when their one real shining thing is not going according to plan and they're missing those shots, it's going to lead to issues. And so South Carolina in this game has to really keep their foot on the gas pedal the entire way through and just don't let up.
Real quick, before we continue this conversation, if you can hear an alarm in the background, the fire alarm in the building's going off. I believe this is the test that we've been waiting on for a while now. So I do apologize if you hear like a high-pitched whine in the background. We're kind of having to play through.
Yes, you got to work through the elements.
Well, this is
here.
a live show.
Yes.
We don't really have other options
No.
if we have to leave the studio until we get into a commercial break, and until somebody comes and tells us otherwise. We're gonna keep going here. But yes, if you hear that alarm going off in the background, I do apologize. That's just I guess not monthly, but you do fire drills every couple times a year or whatever, like when we were in elementary school, right? Where you had to and walk outside in an orderly line, and you'd go stand in the parking lot or in the field or something like that.
God.
And, your teacher would hold up their hand, they take attendance. So it's the same kind of thing.
Nostalgia, man. But anyway, yeah, I mean, look, South Carolina should, I don't know, I haven't seen a spread on this game yet, but look, South Carolina should be able to win this type of game comfortably. Like, you look at Ken Pom, like, Presbyterian's really low ranked in the low, in the closer to 300, I would say, in Ken Pom. So South Carolina shouldn't have issues in this game. It's just, again, you got to shoot the ball well, and you got to figure out, okay, how are we limiting turnovers? Are we going to be better in transition defense, and can we just be better defensively on the floor? I mean, that's the key tonight, is figure out all the other things that have gone wrong so far this year and correct them, because once you get to SEC play, teams are going to be feasting off those mistakes that you can't correct.
Yeah, and this is just looking at the Ken Pom numbers here. Presbyterian's a team that does struggle offensively, so I don't know if they're going to quite bring you into a shootout like Southern Miss did the other day. They're certainly a team that doesn't shoot quite as many three-pointers, which is good. So, yeah, hopefully this is a game. And, look, we keep going back to our conversation that Bill and I had with Coach Bears before the season started. They set these games up specifically for this reason, to kind of ease yourself in, right? As you're trying to figure out a new team, trying to figure out everybody's roles, younger guys coming in, transfer portal guys coming in. You take on these teams that are on the lower end of men's basketball to really get your feet underneath you before, starting next Friday, take on Butler. You take on Northwestern. You have Virginia Tech. Of course, you got Clemson still in the non-conference before you get into the murderer's row that is the SEC schedule. So I do like the way this sets up. And I'll go back to something that Coach Parrish said the other day after the win on Sunday against Southern Miss. That kind of win was good for them because they had to come back. They had to face adversity. It wasn't just, you cruise to a 30-point win, whatever. You feel good about it like you did against North Carolina A&T the other day. Like, you actually had to face some challenges in that game and figure out how to put yourself back into it, and hopefully that bodes well for them going forward.
No, totally. I mean, like, they're going to be able to outshoot and hopefully outscore Presbyterian tonight. Like, in the they played one team that they just scored 100 points on, and they weren't even like they're an NAIA school. I can't even remember the name of the school that they were faced the other day, but they faced three opponents that you would find in the Ken Pom rankings, and all of them are whatever, and they average about 62 points a game. So that said, South Carolina has been putting up 80 plus points in the first two games of the year. They did against NC State as well. They're going to be able to outscore them. It's just, can you get the shots to fall, and can you take a lead early and never relinquish it? That's going to be the key.
I do wonder as well, is Presbyterian going to try and employ any of the zone defense that clearly threw Carolina for a loop the other day.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I imagine a lot of their upcoming opponents are going to try and do that. Now, look, not every team can run a good zone defense, but that seems to be something that has tripped up this Carolina offense so far this season.
Yeah, no, it totally has, and hopefully it's something that they can correct here and get it right. These are the games, like we said, Tyler, that they are meant to allow you to reset, figure out what went wrong in the Southern Miss game, and correct it, and hopefully we'll come out with a better result tonight. Again, Lamont Paris's defense have always been pretty good at South Carolina. I know he's preached it since he's been here, and it's kind of been unlike him to see this type of defense struggle early on in the year, though they were better when they went to the 1-3-1 zone, so maybe they'll try to implement a little bit more of that tonight.
One more note from men's basketball that you sent me yesterday. BYU has gotten a commitment from Abdullah Ahmed. Now, Abdullah Ahmed is 22 years old, and he's been given either 2 or 3 years of eligibility by the NCAA after having played in the G League for the Knicks for the past handful of years. And he is coming back to college basketball, seemingly being able to play until he's 25 or 26, because what is eligibility these days? I don't know.
I don't like this. I'm totally against this. It's one thing to be in college like you are with Oscar Attaway and Rasul Faison right now until you're 25 years old, and even Tyler Shuck when he was in college playing till he's looking like he's 30 right now. Now with the Saints, I mean, like, look, it's one thing if with the COVID messed everything up to where guys are having extra years of eligibility and there's red shirts and guys are getting hurt. I understand that. But you went to play pro. Like, the G League is professional basketball. Like,
I thought it was.
It's essentially the minor leagues like it is for baseball. Like, I think it's so strange how the NCAA is allowing this. Then again, you know, I'm sure if this did not go in Ahmed's favor, I'm sure his camp would just go ahead and sue the NCAA. And the NCAA already has enough issues, so they don't want to probably deal with that sort of thing hanging over their head. But this is wrong, man. This is wrong. Like, guys are going pro, and then they're able to come back. This is setting a really strange, and as the alarm finally shut off, hopefully for good, but it's setting a really dangerous, I don't know what the word is, but this is not good, I don't think.
Yeah, so, Abdullah Ahmed going to be playing for BYU, and maybe the oldest player in college basketball within these next handful of years, because eligibility is just a mystery at this point.
It's scary to think about, man. I mean, this is only opening this. Hopefully, this does not open the floodgates for more of this. I don't like this at all.
Last night, we got our newest college football playoff top 25. We'll dive into that and see who we think is eliminated from contention after another set of rankings has been revealed as the Extra Point rolls along. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Wednesday on the Game. All right, welcome back in. Extra Points. Our head Jack Belcher with you on your Wednesday here on the game. Last night, the second edition of the College Football Playoff Top 25 for this season was revealed. Not a ton of change towards the top, as kind of expected. The top 5 stayed exactly the same. Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, and Georgia. I mean, you can make an argument that maybe A&M could have jumped over Indiana, but I don't really have a problem with them staying status quo on that. And kind of as we expected, the very top, not a whole lot of difference here.
No, I honestly think the committee is doing a very good job so far. Now, as the weeks go on, there are going to be more challenges because you're going to have some of these teams playing each other throughout the rest of the season and going into conference championship weekend, and that might make things a little bit tougher. Like, decisions will have to be made. But right now, I like the way this looks. I really don't have many qualms with it. I think they have it pretty much right so far.
The first change comes with Texas Tech being number 6. I kind of expected this to be the case. They were number 8 last week. They beat number 7 BYU by a pretty significant margin, 29-7. And while Ole Miss throttled the Citadel, I do think that gave Texas Tech a better win than what Ole Miss has up to that point. Their best win as of right now being, of course, Oklahoma. So that makes a lot of sense why they would jump up there. Texas Tech still in the driver's seat right now. And what that does is it puts Texas Tech in a good spot where even if they lose the conference championship game, assuming they win out, they could still make it as an at-large if it comes down to that.
Totally. I mean, they have a little bit of margin for error here where they could lose another game. And that's why if it's Texas Tech and BYU, both with one loss going into the Big 12 championship game, hypothetically, that's where things become really interesting in that, okay, does that conference championship game matter to the extent of, like, regardless of what happens, both teams are getting in? Not sure. BYU did take a little bit of a slip, though, as expected. Fell down to number 12 at an 8-1 record. So, I mean, they're still very much in the mix, but they definitely did drop a little bit after that loss. Because what were they originally, 8?
Yeah, they were number 7.
Yeah,
so it was 7 versus 8 matchup.
5 spots.
And the fact that they got dominated in that game, we brought it up the other day, they only crossed the 50-yard line 3 times over the course of the entire game on Saturday. So it wasn't like it was close. If you lose that game on a last-second field goal, then, okay, maybe they only dropped to, like, 9 or something like that. But losing by that big of a margin drops them down to 12. And for BYU, really, because the line is still cut off at number 10 at this point in time. We'll get into the bracket here in just a second. So BYU, I don't think they can do enough to work themselves back in from an at-large standpoint, though they still control their own destiny. They will play Cincinnati coming up here in a couple weeks, and assuming they win out, they'll play in the conference championship game, seemingly against Texas Tech once again. And if they win that, boom, they're automatically in. But I think their ability to get in as an at-large is probably out the window now.
You're probably, if you're BYU, you're really hoping that Utah continues to stay pretty hot, stay upward in the rankings, because they're 13 right now at 7-2, because that's the best win they got right now. And you're right, Tyler. Like, they don't really have a high quality opponent the rest of the way. Now it would just be easier if they just win the Big 12 and have a win over Texas Tech, and then I think you probably end up getting both teams in. But it would be interesting to see if Tech and BYU faced off in the Big 12 championship. If Tech beat BYU for a second time, and maybe it's much closer this time, does BYU get left out? It's a very interesting dynamic, because I think if it's the other way around, I still think you get both BYU and Tech in.
Yeah, and again, if they would have lost that game tight to Tech the other day, I think you could make an argument. If they lose them again, no matter what the margin is, I think they're definitely out at that point in time. So that was kind of the big shakeup in terms of teams moving inside the top 10. The most interesting move of the entire night, though, was Miami jumping up 3 whole spots from 18 up to 15. And College Football Playoff Committee Chair Mack Rhoades discussed why the Hurricanes made that kind of move.
Yeah, I mean, Miami, I think, Reese, you said it, we had some teams lose, And again, the conversation with Miami has been, about their consistency especially on offense. They've been really, really good, on defense. Obviously, the head-to-head with Notre Dame comes up, and, so a lot of conversation about Notre Dame, 7 straight, better defensively than what they were at the beginning of the year. So all of those things played into it. We've got great respect for Miami. When you think about the eye test, they're really talented, both sides of the ball. Just need to be a little bit more consistent on the offense.
I'll be honest with you, Jack. I think the playoff committee looked around last week and realized they had Miami way too low, and they tried to course correct. Because while, yes, you did have Louisville and Virginia that were ranked ahead of them lose this past weekend, they also jumped over Georgia Tech because it was assumed Georgia Tech was going to be the highest-ranked ACC team up to this point. They only have 1 loss at this point in time anyway, but I do think, and maybe they should have done this last week anyway, Miami's win over Notre Dame does bolster their resume quite a bit, and I think this is more of a course correction than, they actually should have jumped up 3 spots in 1 week despite only beating a pretty kind of down Syracuse team.
Definitely course correction, for sure. Like that win over Notre Dame at the beginning of the year has got to hold some weight, and I'm glad it does in this case. And again, there's still so much time left in the season to where, like, these things are going to resolve themselves with these teams playing each other and whatnot. But yeah, Miami's an interesting one because they looked like if you had asked me when they were at their peak at, like, whatever it was, number 2 or whatever, I would have been like, okay, well, like, when the playoff rankings come out for the first or second time, they're going to be one of those top 4 seeds for sure because they've just been playing so good. But they definitely had slipped up in 2 of those games against SMU and Louisville, and now they really have no more margin for error the rest of the way. I mean, they got to find a way to get to the ACC championship, and it's going to be tough because the ACC right now, it's looking like a 1-bid league, and it's also looking like you got like 5 or 6 teams with one or 2 losses that are right in the mix to go to the conference title game.
And they obviously don't have the tiebreaker against Louisville because Louisville beat them. They don't have the tiebreaker against SMU now, so they need mass chaos in the last couple weeks of the regular season to get any shot of making the conference championship, which I don't think they will. They're going to need a lot of chaos in front of them if they want any shot of making it in as an at-large as well. If anything, I think this bolsters Notre Dame's resume that much more because now their 2 losses on the season are to 2 teams inside the top 15, one of them being an undefeated A&M team at number 3, and now the the 15th ranked team in Miami. So I think this does more to help Notre Dame than it actually does to help Miami at the end of the day.
I would say so. And Notre Dame, just the rest of the way, just needs to go 10-2 and they'll be in. I have no doubt about that in my mind. I mean, the committee loves Notre Dame and what they've done, and I know, like, they really have not had the most high-quality wins after starting 0-2, but they're Notre Dame. They're the big brand, and as long as they're 10-2, they're probably getting in even without a conference championship. But Miami, yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps out Notre Dame more so than Miami. That's a good point you make there.
So as far as our eliminator goes, last week we looked at the top 25, and we said that Washington and Tennessee probably didn't have a pathway to get in. Washington was number 23. Tennessee was number 25. Washington would then lose to Wisconsin, so whatever maybe small semblance of hope they did have has now completely been eliminated. Tennessee moves up to number 23. I still just don't think they have any pathway because all the conferences are in conference. And they can't make the SEC championship game. Are ready to put Iowa in there as well?
Yes.
Because now they're to 3 losses, and they're not making the Big Ten title game.
No, yes. If there's a team with if there are teams with no chance to make the conference title game and they have 3 losses, that's it. That should automatically eliminate them right there. I just don't see a way in which we are getting a 9-3 team into the college football playoff. It didn't happen last year. I don't think it's happening this year.
So that means, once again, we got 23 of the 25 teams that we still think has a very feasible shot of making it into the college football playoff. Now, for everybody in the ACC, like Louisville, who lost this past weekend, Pitt, teams like that, that is probably going to have to come virtue of the conference championship game. But as we talked about the other day, there's still 5 one-loss teams in the ACC as of right now. I don't know who that's going to make the conference championship game, but whoever doesn't win will automatically be in, and I think that's going to be it for the ACC.
Probably. I think the ACC is a 1-bid league. I could see a way in which the Big 12 is a 1-bid league. Feels like the SEC and the Big Ten are going to have most of the staying power in this whole thing.
Real quick, as far as the projected field, you'd have Ohio State, Indiana, A&M, and Alabama getting buys into the second round. First round matchups would be number 7 Ole Miss versus number 10 Texas, number 6 Texas Tech versus number 11 Miami, number 8 Oregon versus number 9 Notre Dame, and number 5 Georgia playing host to number 12 USF, who finally did get into the top 25, first G5 team to do that.
Yep, because Memphis blew it the other day.
Yep, they did. So yeah, it does look like and James Madison can make a case for themselves too. So
Jamie, don't sleep on them.
Don't count out the Sun Belt there, but yeah, the American is leading the way with USF, the first team to get ranked outside of the Power Four so far this year. We'll dive into the NFL coming up next. We'll take a look at the NFL top 5 and who is sitting at the top of our list as we're roughly halfway through the NFL season. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry with you on your Wednesday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Points Hour ahead, and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. We'll get into plenty of teams that sprung leaks coming up in a few minutes with our NFL bottom five. Is there one loss that stands out to you as the worst of the weekend in the NFL?
Oh, God. I'm trying to think back. I would say the Bills losing to the Dolphins.
Still trying to figure that one out.
I couldn't tell you, man. I could not tell you. I don't get that game at all.
I think maybe the Giants blowing a 10-point lead in the final 4 minutes.
But we're so used to it.
That led to Dable getting fired. That may take the cake.
We're so used to it at this point, though, where it's just happened over and over again this season. So I would say that, or, I mean, just definitely, I just don't. The fact that the Bills came off the win over the Chiefs the week before, and it's like, hey, this is how you respond the following week over a team that you've typically owned, I don't get it.
Yeah, definitely some questionable losses there, and that's our Who Sprung a Leak brought to you by our friends over at American Leak Detection. Before we get into our NFL top five here, some quick news. Travis Hunter yesterday going to miss the remainder of his rookie year with the Jaguars as he had a procedure done on his right knee. He had a collateral ligament that was repaired. Also had some damage to his LCL as well. And, he's probably not gotten as much attention because he is with the Jaguars, and they're kind of a little up and down as of right now. Though Liam Cohen is doing a solid job in his first season as the head coach down there. But, Travis Hunter, we did wonder how he could handle the load of playing both sides of the ball in the NFL. And he's more of an offensive player than a defensive player, but this does beg the question, when he does return in a handful of months in the offseason, do you maybe just kind of stick him on one side of the ball and let him stay there?
I would imagine so, but I still feel like, I don't know what they're going to do. I think you probably stick him mostly at one side of the ball, and then especially if it's offense, then just let him play offense. But if you're going to put him on defense primarily, then have him have a little bit of a package or two maybe on offense. I still think there's a lot that you can do with him offensively. And ultimately, I think he will play receiver. But, I mean, he's a very talented player, and it sucks to see an injury like that happen.
So I wish him the best, and we'll see him back on the field coming up next season. Now time for NFL Top 5, and we'll start at the number 1 spot. And for me, it didn't change. It was the Colts. I was worried that maybe that loss to the Steelers the prior week could be a sign of things starting to crack a little bit. Didn't happen. Went out there. Jonathan Taylor once again dominated on the ground, 244 yards against the Falcons. Danny Dimes getting a little bit loose with the ball. Did put the ball on the ground 3 times, only lost it once, coming off of a couple of interceptions against the Steelers. So I've got my eye on that. But this is still one of the most complete teams in the league right now.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that as well. Colts are my number 1. Like you said, Tyler, I was a little bit concerned, and I think I would have probably had a little bit more doubt if the Colts didn't take care of business in Berlin against the Falcons, but they did, and they showed me, look, that was just a one-off situation, losing to the Steelers, and we will see how the rest of the season goes, and if the magic can continue for Daniel Jones and this entire offense and Shane Steichen and what they're doing there in Indy, but definitely looking like the number 1 team in the league right now.
Number 2 for me, it's going to go to the Los Angeles Rams. They took a good 49ers team to the woodshed on Sunday. Here's a stat for you. In the last 3 games, Matt Stafford has 13 touchdowns and no interceptions. What year is this? Is this 2012 or is it 2025? I don't know if he found the fountain of youth, but he might be playing the best football of his career right now.
It's crazy to say that because he's been really good since coming over from the Lions, and that first year where they won the Super Bowl, I didn't think it could get better than that. They're looking really good right now, and this is a team that mortgaged a lot of their future to win that Super Bowl. So the fact that they're still looking as good as they are is really, really impressive. They have cracked my top 5, but at number 2 for me, I got to stick with the New England Patriots. They continue to really impress me right now. 8-2 on the year, coming off a nice win over the Buccaneers in Tampa last weekend. They just continue to play really well. Drake May looking good. And also, they've got some new uniforms dropping tomorrow.
I did see
on
that.
Thursday Night Football against the Jets. Very clean. I don't know if you've seen them.
The Nor'easters.
Yes.
Yeah,
I like them.
It's the modern Patriots logo with the white helmet. Kind of an icy look to it. I think it looks good. I love the fact that the NFL is getting creative with its uniforms. Now, not all of them are great, but We've come a long way since the one show rule a couple years ago where you couldn't switch helmets.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we're in this new era.
Yeah, me too. So you want to get to number 3?
Yeah, my number 3 it's going to be the Seattle Seahawks. Their last 2 wins, they've won a combined 82-36. And again, I feel like maybe because they're on the West Coast, they're playing in late games that you don't get to see because it's not as available here in the local market. Do you realize Jackson Smith-Njigba has 6 games of over 100 yards so far this year?
He's been incredible this year for Seattle. I mean, that entire team with Sam Darnold leading the way at quarterback, I mean, it's just a fun team to watch.
And by the way, they play the Rams, so it'll be my number 2 versus number 3 coming up on Sunday. And look, that could be, considering how both teams play on offense and defense, that game could be 45-42, or that game could be 17-14.
It could be. It definitely could be. Number 3 for me. My top 3 remains the same. 4 and 5 is where we'll see some big changes. But the Philadelphia Eagles, they did not play a great game at all against the Packers the other night. Only won 10-7, but still, this team is playing good ball right now. Winners of 3 straight. Outside of the loss to the Broncos and the Giants, they've looked pretty sharp this year at 7-2, and I got to stick with them in the top 5.
Okay, I'm going to go with the Patriots. You just mentioned them a moment ago. Again, 7 straight wins as of right now. Huge win on the road at Tampa Bay the other day. By the way, Travion Henderson running into the end zone and having to check with Mike Vrabel, like, do I score? No. Do you want me to go down? Like, one of the coldest moments of the entire year. That was phenomenal. And like Drake May, he might be the MVP. Like, I don't know if we ever foresaw when the Manning-Brady era ended that the Colts and the Patriots would both find their way back to the top of not only the AFC but all of the NFL, but here we are.
The dude is definitely a clone of Tom Brady. I mean, it's no coincidence that guy cloned his dog. And then I see it, man. I see Brady when I'm watching Drake May right now. Number 4 for me, I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks. I said this is where some changes come. Moving the Packers out, moving the Bills out, and this is where you get the Seahawks at number 4. They're playing some really damn good ball right now. I mean, they blew out the Cardinals the other week. They blew out the Commanders on Sunday Night Football the week before. Nicky Minwari's playing some really good ball right now. Sam Darnold's looking good. JSN's looking great. I mean, this is a fun team to watch, and definitely a sleeper right now to go on a run to win a Super Bowl.
My number 5 team is going to be the Denver Broncos, who kind of we're talking more about the Patriots, but the Broncos are also on a 7-game win streak. For those that don't know, I think they start off the year 1-2. I think they won the first game, lost the next 2, and have reeled off the 7 straight wins since. So they not only lead the league in sacks. Do you realize there are 16 different players with at least half a sack on this team?
It's crazy. It's crazy. I don't think we talk about them enough. I'm not bought into them, though.
You're not?
No.
Well, so their offense, and that's why I have them at 5, because their
thing.
offense is sputtering a little bit right now. Again, they only got 10 points the other night in that god-awful Thursday night football game. And, Bo Nix, he has his ups and downs. So I don't know if they have, like, an offense to take them deep into the postseason. But, and let's go back to that Super Bowl year team a decade ago, you can be carried by defense to a degree.
You can. That's true. That we did see that in Peyton Manning's final year. So it's possible, but Bo Nix has got to play better. I mean, I know the sophomore slump and all that, but he definitely has to play better for this team to really be a serious threat. Broncos are just outside my top 5. They would be at hypothetical, like, number 6. But I'm putting the Rams at number 5. I just like the way this team is also playing out there in the NFC West. The NFC West, besides the Cardinals, might be like the best division in football right now. Looking really good. Coming off a big win over the Niners the other day, 42-26. So Matt Stafford dipping into the fountain of youth. I'm liking what McVay's doing out there in L.A. That's a very good football team.
We'll hit our NFL bottom 5 coming up next. And also, what does Bill Belichick think of the open jobs in the NFL? You hear what he has to say next as well as the extra point rolls along on your Wednesday on the game.
for Wake Forest. That's all I got this week.
Has anyone asked you, or players or recruits want to know about your future?
I mean, I've been asked about it from time to time, but yeah, I've been down this road before. I'm focused on Wake Forest. That's it. And that's my commitment to this team. And next week it'll be to our next opponent and so forth. But, I'm here to do the best I can for this team.
Oh, in the spirit of we're on to Cincinnati, that's Coach Bill Belichick talking about focusing on Wake Forest and not the now 2 NFL jobs that have become open with the Titans and the Giants more recently by firing Brian Daboll. If you're taking your bets right now, Jack, is Bill Belichick coaching in the NFL or college next year?
I think he's going to be back at UNC next year, but I'm not ruling it out that he goes and coaches in the NFL. I mean, think about it. He had a lot of success with the New York Giants back in the day with Bill Parcells and everything they did there in the 90s. I know he loved coaching the Giants, so it would not surprise me at all if he went back to the NFL.
I don't know. I think the NFL kind of is past Bill Belichick because he could have been hired in the cycle 2 years ago. Nobody wanted him.
And that's partially why I do think he's going to stick at UNC. And UNC is actually, if they're getting pretty close to getting to 6 wins, man. I mean, they got 4. I think they're like 4-5 right now or something.
They've quietly been getting better.
They coming off the win over Stanford. Gotta win 2 of your next 3 games to become bowl eligible. But that would be a massive success in year 1 for Belichick if they are able to get to a bowl game.
All right, let's fly through an NFL bottom 5 here. We'll start out with number 28. Don't let them get hot. New York Jets have won 2 games in a row. On Sunday, Justin Fields also threw for 60 yards or less for the 4th time this year. So they are actually winning now. They still don't have a good quarterback. The defense isn't that great. Again, this isn't a team that's going to be going anywhere anytime soon, but credit to them because they've actually found a way to win 2 games.
I was thinking about leaving the Jets in the bottom 5 because, they've arguably been one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the NFL this year. But they've won 2 straight now, and it doesn't matter how you get there with a bad passing performance from Justin Fields. They've won 2 straight. They have moved out of the bottom 5 for me, but I'm leaving the New Orleans Saints in there after a big win over the Carolina Panthers, 17-7. You can only put lipstick on a pig for so long. This is still a very bad football team, and 1 win does not change that.
So I actually have the Saints in my number 29. You're right, 2nd win of the year. By the way, I believe I saw the stat. Tyler Shuck is the first rookie to win at quarterback for the Saints since like 1981.
Crazy.
Which is insane. Now, again, the Panthers are what they are. Better than we thought they would be, but I guess not shocking that the Saints went on the road to win that game. They've only eclipsed 20 points this season twice, though.
Yeah.
And Sunday was not one of those cases. Like, this team's got a lot of offensive problems.
Yeah, they do. They have a ton of problems. Number 29 for me, the Cleveland Browns. I really don't know how I haven't had the Browns in my bottom 5 before this week, but here we are. Again, they just not a good football team. They're 2-7 on the year. 0-5 away from Cleveland and coming off a loss to the New York Jets. So that right there alone is going to put them in the bottom 5, though I do like seeing what Dylan Gabriel is doing. I kind of like that they moved on from Flacco and are just kind of embracing the youth that they have on this team. Might as well.
Browns are actually going to be my number 30, and here's the stat for you. They lost to the Jets while gaining them by over 100 yards because they gave up, I believe, a kick or a punt return touchdown, and I want to say a defensive score as well, if I'm remembering correctly. So even when the offense is clicking, the other sides of the ball aren't holding up their end. So, yeah, just look, I can just say they're the Browns, right? And everybody would know exactly what I'm saying.
Exactly. That's the only explanation you need. Another team you could kind of say that about in the modern era, you got to go with the Vegas Raiders at number 30.
Yep.
Another team that I've surprisingly kind of kept out because there's talent on this team, but just not doing very good. Geno Smith this year, you know the story. 11 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The guy is prone to throw a pick every single game, if not more. But, they just underperforming massively this year under Pete Carroll. Ashton Genty has been all right, but, yeah, number 30 for me.
You know my rule when it comes to what happens when you fire your head coach. You find yourself at the bottom of the list permanently. The New York Giants, welcome to the bottom of the list. Number 31 as they moved on from Brian Dable after blowing yet another fourth quarter lead to the Bears on Sunday. As Dable looking for a new job, and they'll, as we talked about yesterday, be looking for their 5th different head coach in the past decade.
Number 31 for me is also the New York Giants, and it's been a tough year for them. They've blown so many leads in the late going in these games, and quite frankly, their record should look a lot different right now, and Brian Dable shouldn't be getting fired. But because of these games that they've lost in the late going, that's led to what's been going on in the field. 2-8 for the 3rd straight year in a row to start a season, and Brian Dable's gone. The one silver lining I will say about the Giants, and I'm actually excited to watch them this weekend against the Packers, Jameis Winston.
That's right. He's back.
He looks to be starting if Jackson Dart does not clear concussion protocol. Give me Jameis. I love Jameis Winston.
Now, is this the game where he throws for 4 touchdowns or 4 interceptions?
I think we're getting 4 touchdowns this game.
You think so?
I think we're going to see I think Dart is definitely going to be right back to starting after this upcoming weekend, but I would love to see Jameis ball out this weekend. He deserves a chance to shine.
So it means he'll throw the 4 interceptions in the next game then, right?
Or maybe he'll just throw 4 picks and 4 touchdowns in a game.
That would be the full Jameis Winston experience.
You get everything all rolled into one.
By the way, no surprise, we both have the Titans at 32, right?
Yeah,
I think we just kind of permanently put them there.
Not much to be said. This team stinks. I mean, it's easy as that.
Yeah, 4-game losing streak, already fired their head coach. Not much to be said about the dismal Tennessee Titans as of right now. And tomorrow we get an intriguing game of 2 teams hot in their own respective ways. The Jets coming in off their 2-game winning streak, taking on the Patriots on their 7-game winning streak.
Yeah, should be a nice little clash in the AFC East. I'm looking forward to seeing these new Patriot uniforms for this rivalry type of thing the NFL's got going on this year. But yeah, this should quietly be a decent game because the Jets have been playing better, but can they beat the Pats? I'm kind of hoping they can.
Hopefully it's a game that Al Michaels can stay awake for this time. We'll see.
Definitely.
We'll talk about that tomorrow and continue to preview the weekend as well. That'll do it for the Extra Point. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Get back into what Beamer had to say yesterday as your Wednesday rolls along here on the game.
This just in, AAA Heating and Air continues to dominate the Midlands with the best HVAC replacement options around. With guaranteed financing, 12 months, no payments or interest, and a 15-year parts and labor warranty, they are setting the standard for new system installations. But did you know they also have great deals on repairs? That's right. If your system is broken and you're short on cash, AAA Heating and Air can still help you out. They offer up to 12-month payment plans with no credit check required on repairs. So all you need is a valid bank account. That's it, and they'll help you handle the rest. Give them a call today, 803-677-1500. Again, the number to call AAA Heating and Air is 803-677-1500. Tell them that you heard about them on 107.5 The Game. Don't delay. Give them a call today. Whether it's a replacement or a repair, they've got the deal that you need.
11 o'clock on your Wednesday morning. Welcome in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here, navigating you through the middle part of your week. You guys missed the fire drill like an hour ago, so I guess you guys came in at the right time.
Planned that.
Sure. Well, they're not supposed to tell us when it is. It's supposed to be a surprise, so, like an actual fire, they don't schedule those things.
Wasn't that supposed to be like last week or 2 weeks ago?
I think it was like 2 weeks ago. Because that's the funny thing about working in an office building is you start hearing things of like, hey, here they're going to have fire drill tomorrow or next week or something like that, and everybody kind of prepares for it, and maybe the rumor leaking made them change it to this week because about an hour ago, Jack and I were sitting here doing the show, and all of a sudden, lights start blaring, there's a siren going off, and, well, we're kind of in the middle of a live show, so we can't do anything, but it seemed like everybody else got out.
Y'all didn't leave?
We didn't leave. We couldn't leave.
Okay.
Everybody else got out in an orderly fashion. Now, if it was an actual fire, I'm sure somebody would have alerted us that we needed to actually leave. But
y'all going to get a fine for that.
I don't know. I mean, it's a live show. I don't really know what other options we have until told otherwise.
Show must go on.
That's right.
Yes.
I just scared the heck out of Jack, by the way. He was looking at his phone, walking down the sidewalk, just paying no attention. I got directly in his personal space. I don't know if you heard him, but he screamed.
I did not. That's funny, though.
It's been an alarming morning for Jack.
Oh, wow.
Oh, hey. Good dad joke.
Thank you.
Very well done. Well, a lot of things to get into this morning. Yesterday, of course, we were out at Charwood Golf Club for Shitterbury, having us out there, and we continue to talk about and preview this offense and what it might look like on Saturday. Beamer talked about it yesterday. I did learn from Jack in the last hour. We're apparently not going to hear from Mike Furrey today, so we will not have him speaking in place of Mike Shula. It will just be the two true full-time coordinators in Clayton White and Joe DeCamillis, so no offensive coordinator talking today, according to Jack an hour ago. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm not super surprised about that. On one hand, you love to hear from Mike Furrey to get kind of his thoughts, how's it been? What are the changes? But you can imagine the questions that would be thrown his way. Are you going to change the offense? How much are you going to change? What went wrong? What needs to go right? And some of those would be, in some ways, illuminating. I would like to hear them. But in other ways, you can kind of understand, like in the year 2025 with coaches, maybe to leave a little bit of mystery behind that, even though, Mike Furrey's been a head coach. He's been in the NFL. He's been a college coach. He understands. It's not like he's like, he would answer the question by being like, sure, guys, here, y'all want a copy of the game plan? Like, I'll fax it over to you, email it over to you. He's not going to say that. At the same time, if you're Shane Beamer, you've made this change, you probably want to keep things just kind of low key and just kind of keep that focus in-house. That's my guess, at least, in terms of why he decided not to make Furrey available.
Well, I think also, like, man, you got enough on your plate as is as well. I think if you're going to, like, if that's your full-time job, if you are the offensive coordinator and you're making $1 million a year, yeah, you can stand up there and answer questions about it and you can smile while you do it. But I think this week, especially, doing it for the first time in a long time and big opponent coming up, like, I think you probably just want the guy focused on game planning and getting ready for this experience. And then, hey, if you put up 35 points or something this weekend, maybe we hear from him next Wednesday.
Sure, which, hey, that'd be phenomenal because that would be a whole lot better than what they've done so far this year. But Coach Beamer did go into some detail yesterday about the offense and what kind of tweaks we might see that have been put in place over the past couple weeks. Here's what he had to say yesterday.
I'd say there's been a pretty good tweaking. There's been some takeout, but then there's also been some add, so when you look at it, I'd say we probably have about the same number, or we will end up, we're getting ready to game plan third down and red zone here this afternoon and tomorrow, but when it all is said and done, we'll end up with about the same amount of plays, and there'll be some things. Certainly, you can't have radical changes, but there's some things that, from that Mike and Sean and Black and the rest of the staff maybe like that they want to emphasize, or things that we were doing before that again, they were part of the offensive staff when Mike Shula was the offensive coordinator, but it wasn't like they just went in their offices and Mike put together the plan and said, here it is. They were all in there and they're all accountable for it. But certainly there's different voices in there now that are leading the way, and there may be some things that they feel a little bit stronger about than maybe Mike did. So yeah, a little bit less of some stuff, maybe a little bit more of things, but ultimately doing what gives us the best chance to be successful, that fits our players, which is what we're trying to do each and every week. But it's been good. It's been good that we had a bye week last week, David. Mike and the offensive staff, they really spent a lot of time the Sunday after the Ole Miss game, and then the Monday after the Ole Miss game, grinding through, kind of putting together an initial plan, and then Tuesday and Wednesday with meetings and practice, and then Thursday before guys went out on the road recruiting, and then back in here on Sunday. So it's been good. I'm eager to watch them play on Saturday.
And as we've talked about plenty, you're not just going to come in and radically change the entire offense in a 2-week span, but there are some things you can take in and out, as you mentioned there. And again, we know this has been a collaborative effort in terms of crafting the game plan, as it always is going into a game week. But when it comes to the actual plays being called, that did end up in the lap of Mike Shula when it came to what he was going to do in certain situations. And that, again, is where Furry can make the biggest difference. And I imagine there's probably a handful of plays in that playbook that maybe Shula didn't like, that Furry believes in or knows that his guys are capable of executing on to get this team down the field and get points and all those kind of things. And those are the kind of differences I think we could expect to see on Saturday.
Yeah, guys, I'll be curious to see, like, are the changes obvious just watching with the naked eye on TV, or is it more kind of a nuanced change and something you have to be like watching the film and having someone point out, oh, this is the play concept that we're running right now versus, we kind of replaced this man beater with this other man beater that we like a lot better. Like some of it may look the same in the TV copy, but may actually be different in terms of how it's taught and what the actual play is, but it may be for the same purpose. And, I think when you bring in a new play caller, we talked about this already this week, but can you just break some tendencies? That's the one thing. Like, yeah, they can go back and pull limestone film if they want, but that would have been his scheme, different players, different opponents, different defenses. There's maybe not even a whole heck of a lot you can actually glean from that. So, I think that's one advantage you have if you're South Carolina. Like, we talk about the script a lot. Can you come out on script? It's going to be an early game. Can you catch A&M a little bit sleepy, not really, expecting much from you based on your record? And can you hit them early and get a little bit of momentum? A great way to do that would be for this just to be a completely different feel, a different vibe, a different, maybe you're throwing a lot more on first downs. Maybe you come out and throw it 10 straight times before you get back to the run game. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. You can do some different things just to keep that opponent on their heels, and there really is not going to be a ton. Like, these days, man, if you are an offense coordinator at this point in the season, they got the data on you, man. They can be like, all right, he throws it on 49% of first downs. He runs it on 78% of second and longs. Like, they have all that stuff out there for you, and the defensive coordinators can then call their defenses based on those percentages. Well, if you really just haven't been an offensive coordinator with this team, those numbers don't exist at this point.
Yeah, and I was going back. You know how sometimes, guys, you'll have these notions about an offense or a defense, and then you got to go back and look at it and say, okay, am I just kind of making that up? Or my eyes deceiving me? Am I remembering that correctly? So I went back and kind of looked at the play log and called plays in the Ole Miss game, because something we've talked about sometimes is, hey, is USC's offense too predictable? Is it, if they don't get anything on first down or get a minimal game, you kind of feel like, hey, they run it a lot on second down. The Ole Miss game, if you look at, what they did on first, second, third downs, they did mix it up to some degree. It obviously depended on the situations, but sometimes they're passing on first and second down. Sometimes they're running the ball on both of those early downs. So it's not like they followed this formula of we're going to pass it on first down, then we're running it on second down, right? But at times, was it too predictable? I think we could say that. Like that again, when you're having this many struggles offensively as they have throughout the course of the season, it's everything. It's protection, it's missing throws, it's decision making, it's scheme, it's play calling. What we were talking about sequencing yesterday, right? So maybe that's something that, that's certainly the hope that Mike Furrey can sequence plays in a manner where, it makes more sense and is giving your players a better opportunity to execute. So I think it's not just, hey, what plays is he calling in a given situation? It's the sequencing. It's eliminating, Luke Doty talked about it yesterday during the player availability. One of the things that they've done, not surprised that we heard this, just eliminating some of the clutter, trying to streamline some of the things and figuring out what can this team best execute. And frankly, a new voice, a new set of eyes who's, with the staff putting together the plan, one less person in that equation, maybe having a heightened input from the other guys like Sean Elliott, Markwell Blackwell, and then a different guy going out there and actually calling it, a guy who's coming at it from a different perspective, being the receivers coach, having worked in different offenses, the hope has to be that different approach can lead to better results. So we'll see, because they're going to have frankly, a huge test starting this weekend with Texas A&M. I think the best team that Carolina's going to play down the stretch, but you're also facing a 3-game stretch where, as we said, you're going to certainly have to score some points to score a win in any of those 3 games, much less all 3 of them.
We'll take a look at Texas A&M coming up next, see what Mike Elko had to say about his team a little bit earlier on in the week as the Gamecocks prepare for the road trip out to College Station coming up on Saturday. That's up next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game.
All right, guys, holidays right around the corner. How about giving somebody a great gift from our friends at Integrated Media? Call them today, 803-948-8327, or head to integratedmediainc.com. What an excellent idea for somebody in your family to give them the gift of an upgraded man cave. Maybe they want the TV hung, hide the wires, surround sound, just taking your house and just upgrading the tech. For me, when they came out to my house, it was more logistics. It was more about just making sure that my internet in my office was as good as it possibly could be. So we hardwired it, whole home Wi-Fi, get a great signal throughout the house. That's more business. But if you want something that's more along the lines of, football watching for fun, maybe just upgrade the full-on man cave experience with a brand new TV, a projector, whatever it is you're envisioning for that. Our friends at Integrated Media can help make it a reality for you. 803-948-8327.
Yeah, again, I just think last year was such a learning lesson for us, and I've referenced it a bunch, but nobody appreciated, obviously, because like me, everyone was so disappointed with how the year ended, but I don't think anyone appreciated the challenge that was being in that position really for the first time, and for those kids ever. For the program, we hadn't been in that position very much either, and so I think we just learned a lot. I think we learned a lot about what would come with it, how to handle it all, what it all really meant at the end of the day, and again, we've handled it the right way for 9 games. There's still 3 more that we've got to handle one at a time, and so that starts Saturday.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you here on your Wednesday on the Game. That the voice of Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko talking about blocking out the noise. And the conversation around A&M really since they've joined the SEC is, all right, you're having a good season, but when's that letdown going to happen? And he alluded to it when it really kind of started last year when they came to South Carolina. And we'll rewind that game more specifically coming up tomorrow, but they entered 7-1 as the number 10 team in the country. They lost Notre Dame in week 1, reeled off 7 straight wins, and came in here in control of their own destiny, and they would lose 3 out of the last 4 games of the regular season to end up being the usual 8-4. Well, for whatever it's worth, they've crossed the threshold where that is not possible this year. They are 9-0. They only have 3 more games left in the regular season, so 8-4 is not in the cards. And assuming Samford doesn't come in and pull off the upset of the year, they should be a double-digit win team regardless. Now, how they handle South Carolina and Texas determines the rest of their fate, but this is definitely a different A&M team than what we've seen in years past, and Mike Elko has firm belief in that.
What if all they had to do was break through that barrier of 8, and now they're just going to
never lose again?
Go to the moon.
Maybe.
I mean, this is a pretty balanced team, guys. Like I think they're for real. Like you don't, like there's no perfect teams, obviously, and I'm not saying they can't lose a game this year, but I think they legitimately are a not just playoff, but a national championship type team. And a big part of that for me is that just the offense matches the defense. Like you think of Elko as a defensive guy, but the offense has been as good, if not better. And, also I think Elko has kind of been a little bit his success so far. And let me ask this first. Are y'all at this point like sold on Elko? Like, is there enough sample size where you're like,
yeah,
this is for real?
Yeah. I think he's going to be there a long time, and they're going to have a lot of success. I don't know if he wins a national championship. That's obviously the next level, but like I think he's going to be there and win a lot of games for them.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's so fascinating to look back. Like, I won't get off on too much of a tangent, but this hitting on a coaching hire a lot of times can be accidental. Now maybe you're in the camp that says, hey, if A&M would have gone through with trying to hire Mark Stoops, maybe you're in the camp that he would have done awesome there with the upgrade and resources that they have. Maybe you're in the camp that would have been a disaster, right? But what we do know is that at least for a period, Mike Elko was not choice number 1. He was a guy who had been a defensive coordinator for his entire career. He'd been a very good defensive coordinator. He worked under the guy that you had fired, and he had been a head coach for 2 seasons at Duke and done an admirable job there. He won 9 games and 7 games in 2 different seasons at Duke, which is pretty good. But other coaches have proven that, like, Duke's not a great college football job, but Manny Diaz has done some things there. David Cliff did some things there. We've seen a lot of examples where an administration or a coach doesn't necessarily get choice number 1, and it ends up working out, and then there's obviously examples to the opposite. You go get your preferred guy, and that doesn't work out. So you could go all day, coming up with those different examples. But I think what they needed with Elko was they needed a guy who could take the resources and the recruiting that they're able to do. I mean, Jimbo Fisher recruited, aside from the quarterback position, which he did leave them the gift of Marcel Reed. Actually, the one guy he hit on there, he didn't get to coach and was a parting gift for them. He's been really, really good for them. Credit their staff and Colin Klein, their OC, for developing him, right? But they needed a guy who could just take them to that next level and kind of stabilize things and bring in, I think, a program identity. And he's been able to do that, right? Texas A&M has typically recruited very well. He's kept that going. I think the outlook's pretty bright because they've got resources to spend in NIL, which you've got to have nowadays. They do a good job with their evals. As you said, Wes, they're a balanced team. They're good in all three phases of the game. And so if you're looking at the long-term outlook, I think if you're an Aggie fan, you probably feel pretty good about it. And for me, sitting here outside just watching them as a college football observer, like, I think it seems pretty stable for those guys going forward.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is that we're sitting here watching one of the biggest coaching carousels, most furious spinning coaching carousels maybe of all time, and at least that appears to be where it's headed. And there's this kind of talk about all the big names. And I think if you look at this last kind of little cycle, you'll see that the big names haven't always been the best hires. And I think even if they maybe stumbled to it, I think the fans kind of just revolted on the Stoops hire was a big part of it. Even they've kind of stumbled to it. Elko at the time was not the biggest name, but I think if you watch college football, you were saying, wow, I do think that guy is a very good coach based on what he did at Duke. So it is not always about just going out and getting the biggest name. Sometimes you stumble into the best fit. Now, but before we give him a lifetime contract, I do think, and let me talk out of both sides of my mouth, this is a very, very good, very talented Texas A&M team. However, look at who they've played so far, and I mean, who do we think the best teams in the SEC are right now, other than A&M? We would probably say Alabama. We would probably say Ole Miss. We would probably say Georgia. We'd probably say Oklahoma. Next, we'd maybe have Vandy. What do all those teams have in common? Well, Texas in there. What do all those teams have in common?
None of them have played A&M so far.
Yes, A&M has not had to play literally any of those teams. They'll obviously play Texas later on, but literally Ole Miss, Bama, Georgia, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt. A&M will not play them this year unless they happen to see them in a championship or playoff.
Yep.
So right now they would see, I guess, Bama in the SEC championship game if it continued the way it is right now.
Yeah, that's very true. So, and look, the SEC, especially now, it's so hard to predict who's going to be at the top of the conference and who's going to be towards the bottom. And, nobody looked and said, oh, you're not playing Vanderbilt. That's a tough team that's not on your schedule. Like, we just don't know. So, I think, like, Missouri's schedule shook out really easy last year. A&M's shaking out easier this year. But I will say, for the games they have played and teams they have played, they've kind of handled their business the way you would think, like a highly ranked team would have. And I know Missouri was without their top two quarterbacks this past weekend, but still, they really kind of left no doubt in that one. And Missouri got a score towards the end to make that game look a little bit better. But it's not like, despite not playing the best in the SEC, they're squeaking out these games. They did beat Notre Dame earlier on this year in a road game at South Bend. So that's a team that's looked at as in the playoff as of right now. They went into their environment and won that game too. So they have shown you the ability to be thought of as one of the best teams, even though some of their competition hasn't quite been at the top of the SEC yet.
Yeah, I mean, Notre Dame, that's got to be their marquee win at this point. And because you look at this thing, Auburn, you won by 6. Now, they did beat up on Mississippi State. The Mississippi State, to me, if you beat up on Mississippi State, like I was impressed with what Georgia did this past week. Like, you look at the record and you're not impressed. But the way Mississippi State has competed, the way Mississippi State has gotten themselves in a lot of close games, that's as good a win as any. But then, I mean, literally, guys, they had a stretch. Their SEC slate to start, Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida, all at home, by the way. And then your first road test in the SEC. And again, give them credit for going to Notre Dame. Give them credit for drive. They did have to drive down and win the game at the end, and there was a botched extra point that helped them. But they finally go on the road, and you play Arkansas. Then your next game on the road, you play LSU, who, you basically put the nail in the coffin there for that situation. I mean, I don't know. This is obviously going to be a very, very tough game to win. I'm not saying it's not, and I do think they are the number 3 team in the country, if not better. But I don't think we know everything we need to know about this A&M team yet. Like the schedule they have played, they have done what they were supposed to do. However, I mean, what is South Carolina's record if they play that same schedule? I think they're at least in a little bit better spot than they are right now. So
yeah, I mean, it's very fair. And you know, I think both things can be true. We can't constantly talk about the parity in the league and how anybody can beat anybody for the most part in a given week, and then not give credit to A&M for going through and winning every week when it's hard to win every week, no matter how good you are. Like you do have to credit them for that, but you can also recognize that, you know, they haven't played Bama, they haven't played Ole Miss, like haven't even played Vandy as you just laid out, Wes. Haven't played some of those top teams, but they have taken care of the schedule that's been in front of them. Some of the games have been close. The Notre Dame game, 1 point, Arkansas game on the road, a 3-pointer, but they're unscathed, and that's all it is. You know, last year, South Carolina, Bama, Ole Miss, they all got kept out of the playoff. And a couple of those, you know, more specifically, I think Ole Miss is the best example. One of the best teams in the country. They lost to two of the worst teams in the league. Again, anybody can beat anybody. So if you're going to go have a special season, you're going to have to go win games like A&M's done this year. And now they've positioned themselves really, really well for the college football playoff if they can, you know, just even mostly take care of business down the stretch.
From an optics standpoint, is this the toughest road game in the Beamer era so far? We'll discuss that coming up next. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Wednesday on the Game. All right, guys, let me tell you about our friends at Krantz Cooling and Heating since 1983. KrantzCooling.com. That's Krantz with a K, Cooling with a K. 803-672-3224. We've always been in that spot, or many of us have been in that spot where you look around and you're like, man, is it a little bit cold in the house? Is it a little bit warm in the house? You look at the thermostat. It's not saying the number that you set it on. Yeah, you hate that feeling, but you want to make sure you're going to be taken care of when you have to make that call. I had to do that exact thing very recently, and I called Krantz. Their service professionals offer furnace repair, maintenance, and installation for your home's cooling system. They're a Trane Comfort Specialist dealer, but they are NATE certified technician services on all makes and models. So if you have an issue or you want to go ahead and schedule an appointment and go ahead and start a maintenance plan, give them a call today, 803-672-3224. Well, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here on your Wednesday on the game. Reminder, tomorrow night, Coach Beamer, you'll hear from him on Carolina Calls with Todd Ellis. His last thoughts ahead of facing A&M on Saturday. That'll lead right into Thursday night football as the Jets travel to take on AFC East divisional rival, the New England Patriots, which you can listen to right here on the game as well. Give me a tough challenge heading on the road, take on the number 3 team on Saturday. This will be the 5th time in the Beamer era that Carolina has played on the road at a top 10 team. Can you guys tell me the other 4 games that's occurred?
Not a chance.
No.
Anybody want to take a guess?
No, just start naming them. I don't want
Chris?
Nope.
No. Okay.
If you start naming, I may. You're completely off guard with this one.
Okay. Just wanted to test your trivia a little bit. In 2021, they played on the road at then number 2 Georgia. In 2023, they played at number 1 Georgia. Last year, they played on the road at number 7 Alabama. And then 2 weeks ago, they played on the road at number 7 Ole Miss.
Okay.
There's your hit. And I guess I could have narrowed it down to top 7 teams.
You would have thought we would remember the game from 2 weeks ago. But
well, I think we're all trying to put that game out of our memory. That's okay.
Kind of the way the season is going, to be honest.
And look, anytime you go on the road, take on a top 10 team, specifically a top 5 team, it's going to be a challenge. And the thing about those other games, I mean, Ole Miss being the only one prior that was this late in the season, you've never faced a team like this in the month of November where they're maybe playing their best football. Now, again, Beamer teams typically play their best football in November. Haven't seen it as of yet, but is this, from an optics standpoint, out of all those 4 games I just mentioned, the toughest true road test they've had in the Beamer era going into this weekend?
I mean, well, when you sell it like that, it does kind of feel like it is. But trying to think of which of those Georgia teams would have been the best.
So,
I mean,
2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
they
was,
won the national championship.
Yeah, that was the first of the championship years.
Right. And we have, of course, the hindsight of being able to say, because like right now, A&M's undefeated, right? We don't know if they'll stay undefeated. We don't know if they'll win the SEC championship. We don't know for sure, even though they've got a great chance to make the playoff as of right now. We don't know for sure that they'll make it or how far they'll advance. 2021, it's a different ball game. You look at Georgia, they were undefeated, of course, when South Carolina played them, but they remained undefeated throughout the regular season. They lost to Bama in the SEC title game, made the playoff, end up beating Bama in the national championship game. So, they were very highly ranked at that time. What'd you say, Tyler? They were number 2?
They were number 2 at that time.
Number 2.
Yeah.
At that time. So, I mean, even at the time, you're like, yeah, this is a big-time test. That team ended up being the best team in the country by virtue of winning the national championship. So, I mean, I think you have to go with that one. But you also have to recognize that we have the hindsight of seeing the finished product also of that Georgia team. I mean, it's hard to make an apples-to-apples comparison. But even with what we know, I still think you got to lean towards that one, right? That's my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think this week's game is probably right behind that one. I just think, I don't know if there's as many just, truly elite teams. Ole Miss was number 7 2 weeks ago. South Carolina literally fired their OC. The Gamecocks are now 1-6 in SEC play, and Carolina didn't even play that well.
Yeah,
and the game wasn't really out of hand until the end. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It didn't really feel like you were playing a juggernaut at number 7. You look back, and again, like Chris said, hindsight and what they ended up being. I mean, that Georgia team, though, I'm looking at, I assumed this remains accurate now, a number of years later, but the FPI at kickoff for that Georgia game was 95% Georgia.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit, that is a huge number when it comes to the matchup predictor for ESPN. Now, this is one of the bigger ones I feel like I've seen in recent memory as well. 85.3% chance of A&M to win the game on Saturday. That I feel like that's the highest number I've seen in a while, like for South Carolina to lose a game.
Well, and I went back. I mean, in addition to your 95% FPI, Wes, I mean, this is almost hard to believe. From what I'm going back and looking at online here for the Vegas betting
It's
odds,
in the 20s, wasn't it?
it was a
24?
31-point line in favor of Georgia for that game, which is, I mean, man, you don't see that a lot.
Carolina did cover that day, by the way. Only
They did
27.
cover, but 31-point line, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of pieces of evidence that was the toughest game. And, even though Carolina covered, barely, you have more evidence that, man, that Georgia team ended up being really, really good. They ended up being the best team in the country.
A late cover at that.
Yeah. By the way, I was going to say Carolina did actually score the second most points against that team in the regular season that year, only behind Tennessee with 17.
Okay. Yeah, see that? I'm proud of us for not being a prisoner of the moment, though, and just saying it's this one. But I think we can fairly confidently say this Georgia game was the toughest one, but then maybe this week's is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't know. It's going to be very hard to win. And this one right now, it opened at 17.5. Right now it's 19.5. I don't know, man. You do have those games I was talking about in the SEC. There's like, I mean, A&M hasn't played an SEC team with a winning record in conference.
Ooh.
No, they haven't. What was Missouri's record going into last weekend?
Well, they were 2-2 at the time.
Okay.
Now they're
All right.
2-3.
I got you.
I'm looking at their current. Well,
Yeah.
even technically, they were 500 going into that game.
Right.
But I mean, literally not they haven't beaten. They haven't played an SEC team with a winning conference record.
Right.
So, I mean, are they probably going to win Saturday? Yes. Are they going to probably make a run at the college football playoff? Yes. But we've seen in the past how who you play and looking great against certain teams can make you look a little bit better than you are.
And I think we've seen this year especially, nobody's invincible, right? I mean, Indiana looked like a lock to go on the road and put up, a 30-point win on Penn State, and they were biting their fingernails down to the end and took an incredible play by Fernando Mendoza and Omar Cooper to escape. And yes, that was a road game, so that's a little bit different there. But no team is exempt from having an off day. Alabama had an off day a couple weeks ago, nearly escaped here with the win. So A&M, as well as they played this year, they could be due for one of those days where they're just not playing up to their best. Early kick out there at A&M, so the crowd won't be as wound up as they probably are for a night game and stuff like that. And I hate that we have to keep going back to this well, but maybe you do catch this team on an off day and can take advantage of that.
Well, I think it's the same conversation we've been having in multiple games, going into multiple games, and that is if you're South Carolina, can you make this a game where you get it into the fourth quarter? They've done that actually in several games, including the Bama game. You're leading the Bama game by 8 in the fourth quarter. You're down by a score at LSU in the fourth quarter. You're down and in range against Ole Miss in the fourth quarter. You look at the final score and you're like, oh, Carolina, got beaten badly. Well, not really. They were in range, again, going into the fourth quarter before Ole Miss pulls away in that one. You're in multiple games. Missouri, you're leading in the fourth quarter, right? There's 4 games you can pick out where they're either up or you're in range with a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter if you can play well, and they haven't finished any of them. So, if you're looking for how competitive can South Carolina be, this is not a team that if you're going into the locker room down 3 scores, you're not going to feel good, right? Can you get it to the fourth quarter, and can you flip the narrative, or not even a narrative, can you flip the reality that you face the rest of the season, which is you've gotten games into the fourth quarter and you can't finish, right? That's what you have to do for South Carolina. That's your starting point.
We'll get more preview of this game as the week goes along. We'll come back, wrap up the hour. Women's basketball in action last night, taking on Clemson, and, it was dominant, to say the least. With that coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs here in the game. All right, welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West Chris along with you here, wrapping up your Wednesday morning. Coming up tonight, by the way, 7 o'clock, men's basketball in action for their third game of the season as they will take on Presbyterian. Pregame coverage starting at 6:30 with tip at 7 right here on the game. Last night, Don Staley's crew in action over at Colonial Life Arena in the Palmetto Series, taking on Clemson from the upstate. And I've seen a lot of interesting things in college basketball over the years. I don't know if I've ever seen one team go 13 and a half minutes to close out a game without scoring a field goal, but that's what happened. Clemson had cut the lead down to 10, 45-35, and proceeded to only make 2 free throws for the final almost quarter and a half to close out the game, as Carolina would win that one pretty comfortably.
Yeah, it was a fairly competitive game for much of the day. Like, it felt to me like South Carolina was in control, but wasn't really pulling away. They obviously did in the fourth quarter. 15 straight. I mean, what is more consistent in life right now other than, I guess, death and taxes than South Carolina beating Clemson in women's basketball? Not just a decade and a half at this point.
Yeah, and 300 wins in Colonial Life Arena, right, for Dawn Staley. The first one against Clemson years ago, and the 300th last night, which is kind of cool. You know, Clemson has an up-and-coming coach in Sean Poppy that I think has improved that roster. And actually, with today, with it being early signing day for basketball, they've actually put together a top 5 recruiting class. So this is, the point of me saying that is this is a rivalry that may become more competitive in the coming years. And even last night's game, which was darn near a 30-point, victory for South Carolina, was close for a few quarters. Clemson made some runs. Tyler, you referenced the drought that Clemson had. South Carolina had their own drought.
Mm-hmm.
They came out in the third quarter, expanded the lead a little bit, but then they went cold. And Dawn Staley attributed kind of some poor shot selection, some rush shot selection at times, but they were able to turn it on with their depth, their length. Defensively, they did a really good job. And, Clemson's a team that is built to take a lot of three-pointers. They certainly did that. I think they tried, 33, somewhere over 30, and they hit them at a very low clip. Some of that you credit South Carolina for. Some of them, honestly, they got really good looks that didn't fall, and it would be interesting to see, think about how different that game could have been if they fell. But I was really interested to get another look against a little bit better competition in Clemson at some of the newer faces on this team, that are integrating in. Agot McKeer is a really unique player. Clemson sagged off of her a couple times, and she said, hey, I can shoot this 3. I'll make it. I thought Medina Okot was really a presence inside. Clemson's a smaller team, play a stretch 4 a lot of the times. So she was able to get in there, make some things happen with her length, her physicality inside. You do notice out there, guys, in addition to not having Maddie McDaniel, who was suspended, not having Chloe Kitts, not having, obviously, Watkins out there for the entirety of this season, the depth is maybe not quite what it's been for South Carolina, but they still are a very deep team, especially compared to a lot of the teams they'll play like Clemson.
You bring up Okot there, and I thought she kind of had almost a Camila Cardoso-esque performance, especially late in that game. She scored 8 of her points there in the fourth quarter, grabbed 12 rebounds, and I know she's a little bit smaller than Cardoso was, but you kind of saw her take over the game in a lot of ways, especially late, and that's something that Cardoso did so well when she was here at Carolina.
Dude, she is such a good fit. Like, I think we all know what a Dawn Staley-led team can do when you have that presence in the middle, and she does so much. The addition of her, the addition of Latson to just kind of, I guess, fit in with what else they brought back. And, man, McKeer, she is, to just be a freshman, like, this girl, I think, is going to be amazing by the time she leaves. She's already making an impact. She can shoot the 3 ball. She's athletic. I think a year in a college weight program is going to do numbers for her, but she's already just being a very efficient presence for South Carolina. And, Dawn Staley, even when she misses on a couple of recruits here and there and people start to just yap a little bit about it, she still comes back and gets great players, and we're seeing that in this class right now as well that is in the process of signing.
And Chris mentioned Maddie McDaniel suspended. We don't know for how long. Dawn Staley didn't go into details of that. She obviously dealt with the injury the other day that was keeping her out. So we'll see if she comes back and can add a little bit more depth to this team that is already down a couple of key players. I mentioned men's basketball in action tonight. All right, we got Michi at his best the other night. Can he follow that up with another strong performance, or would he get like that Michi balance where he kind of reverts back to the norm today?
Well, against PC, respectfully. So disrespect not intended.
Disrespecting the blue hose.
No, respectfully. You hopefully don't need the Michi go-off game. That's what I'm going to say.
Yes. Michi, by the way, in the house at the women's game last night, guys.
Nice.
Yeah, he was supporting him and several other players. So he was down there getting recognized, getting loved up by some of the fans. You're right. You hope you don't need the Michi go-off game, but man, I rewatched that actually last night with the radio commentary. Actually, it was this morning. Incredible performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, men's team in action tonight taking on Presbyterian. 7 o'clock tip. We'll touch on that tomorrow, as well as continue to preview the number 3 Texas A&M Aggies ahead of Saturday's matchup in College Station. I'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show. Myself and Bill Gunner coming up next as your Wednesday rolls along here in the game.